Hey guys, here is a video covering making selections and masking and some other effects, I guess, in Photoshop. Um, okay, this is for a specific assignment for a class, but maybe this will get used if you're not doing this assignment and you need a review on selections and masking. So if you're looking at this product and you're wondering what's up, well, I'm doing it for one class and you may not be that class. Okay, so here we are. I'm holding a can of WD-40 and um, I'm going to show you how to make a selection of it in case you haven't done this for a while or maybe you haven't done it. Hopefully you have, but okay, there are various ways to make this selection. I want to select the can and the hand and ultimately mask out the background. Now, as I've said a few times in class, I know that there's increasing numbers of tutorials about erasing background and Adobe's coming up with erasing tools like erasing the background. I still make an argument for masking because masking allows future editing. So it is non-destructive and it is editable. Okay, so that's my simple argument. All right, so we want to select the can, and you can do that with the um, quick select tool. That's one way to go about it. So I'm moving the toolbar around here. Quick select tool is the fourth tool down. The most recent version of Photoshop, I think 2020, now has I think an object select um, tool right there. I'm using 2017, so I'm a little bit behind here. Probably should open this in my 2019 version, but here I am. You can find your quick select tool, the fourth tool down, right? If you're working in 2019 or 2020 or later, up in the top when you select quick select, up in the properties bar, and I'm working in the workspace that's Essentials Classic. In the properties bar up at the top, you'll have a button that says subject select. I think that's what it's called. And it asks Photoshop to figure out what the subject is and make a selection around it. In many cases, that works just fine because the color contrast or the lightness darkness contrast, the luminance contrast is enough that Photoshop can figure it out. Right, it scans the image and it kind of guesses at what the subject matter of the photograph is and gives it a go. And that might be a good way to start. It may do a great job all the way around, or it may get you 75% of the way there, and then you can just continue on. I'm in this 2017 version that doesn't have that, so I'm going to go old school and use my quick select tool, and I can select the background or I can select the can, and I don't know which one is better. It really depends on what the image is like. Here, like if I select the background, which is a white table down at the bottom, Photoshop is going to figure that out very fast. So I don't know. I'll try it with the background and see how that goes. You can see my tool, the cursor for my tool is floating there. It's too small, right? And I use my bracket keys, left bracket, right bracket, to change the size of the tool. Right bracket makes it bigger, left bracket will make it smaller. Okay, you can also do that up in the properties bar, up in the top, and I should check that out. I could change the size up here. I don't do that though. I use the bracket keys, and I start with 100% hardness, which means it's going to make a very crisp selection. Okay, and that's the way I go. I go crisp, and then later on, if I need to, I soften things. So I'm going to try selecting the background, see if Photoshop figures it out. It quickly grabs that white, all right, gets that. And then once it's done processing, I'll quickly look on the, gets the right side. So it's got the left and the right side. I'll make my tool smaller. That's my left angle bracket. And I come in here and get that white space selected. Make it even smaller still. Try to select that little space between my fingers right there. And Photoshop gets it. Pretty good. Okay, but I also want to get the top of the picture in the background where it gets a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to make my tool bigger. That's my right bracket. Click, 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 click. Come on. get bigger. There's a little bit of lag time. My Photoshop is slowing down a bit. Come on. It's not working for me at all right there. So I am having this lag time with Photoshop right now. So I'll chit-chat away while it thinks and tries to figure out what I'm doing. Oh, look at that. It's expanding the selection. We weren't supposed to do that. Okay, so Photoshop has gone off on a path of its own right now. You can see it's moved the selection up into the background, but it's also captured more of the can. And that's because there's this gap between this red hose and the can, and Photoshop thinks I want all that. So I'll just see if I can correct this by making my selection tool a deselect tool. You can do that by pressing Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC. And I'll come down here to the bottom of the can and try to deselect. All right, right now Photoshop has selected that whole thing. Wow. Okay, all right, this seems like, like this is a problem. Wow, it didn't do it all so easily. What's wrong with the digital world? Well, this is something you should get used to, right? Okay, so I'm back to pretty decent. Everything's pretty good right now as far as I am. That little gap between my fingers needs to be it needs to be selected the way I'm working, because I'm trying to select the background. Pick that up again. Okay. And to be honest with you, I'm not going to make a perfect selection here because I don't want this video to go on forever. I just want to give you the idea and cover some of the basic ideas of selections. Okay, by the way, there are other selection tools. I'm over at the toolbar. Up at the top you have the marquee selection tool, which is the second icon down. And underneath that you can choose from rectangular to elliptical, and then single rows and columns of pixels there, right? And then below that you have the lasso tool, and just like all these tools that have a little white tab at the bottom, if you click and hold, you'll find out, oh, okay, there are actually multiple tools in there, and I've got 3 different types of lasso tools. One's freehand, that's the top, polygonals, the second, magnetic lassos, the third. Polygonal draws in straight lines, really good for architectural elements, anything that has straight lines. Magnetic lasso asks Photoshop to detect what the edge of a shape is, and you just then move your cursor along that line, and hopefully, if there's enough contrast, color, and luminance, Photoshop can figure it out, right? But back to my quick select tool, right? I'm going to pick this up and see if I can get Photoshop to figure out the rest of the background. Right, so far so good. It selected a little bit too much around this nozzle. Right, come over here. I was going to say, just about to say, it easily distinguishes between the can and this white wall, but in reality, right there at that part of the can, Photoshop can't see the difference. I'll zoom in a little bit. It can't see the difference between this kind of greenish can and the white wall. Okay, that's okay. It gives me the opportunity to show you another way of working with selections. Okay, how's it done over here? Right, so far so good. I want to get that dresser back there. Right, so it's doing that. Okay, and now I'm zoomed in, and I can see there are some rough spots here with the selections, right? Like right down along the edge of the can, right? And I'll show you a little trick. I want to clean up that line here. And one way to do that is with the polygonal lasso tool, right? So I've selected that polygonal lasso tool. I look up at my properties bar, it says feather 0 pix. That's what I want, right? And what I want to do is clean up this line with a straight line, right? And what I'm going to do is run my polygonal lasso tool down that edge and basically cut off these little marching ants that are interfering with that edge. Now remember, it's the background that's selected in my version, not the can, right? You could go the other way. You could select your object, or you can go to the background. And I don't know if it really matters in my case, but it really depends on image. Okay, so I'm going to, if you see these little fringe ants here, it's a little bit of a problem. I'm going to crop them out because they go beyond the selected area, and I'm going to deselect those areas. Okay, the way you deselect is press your Option key on a Mac or Alt key on a PC. When you do that, you'll see a little negative line next to your cursor, which in this case is the polygonal lasso cursor. So I'm going to click in the unselected area, which is the can in my case. So I click there, I come over to the edge of the can, and I draw a straight line A. Click on the edge of the can, right? So, and what it's doing is going to draw a straight line between my anchor points, right? Every time I click, I get an anchor point. So I'm going to click down here, right? Click, come up here, and reconnect, right, like that. And it'll clean up that edge, right? It's not perfect, and I could go, well, I'll just do it now just to show you just the opposite, because there are parts of these marching ants that are in the wood back here and not falling on the can. So I'm going to add to the background selection. If you want to add a selection to a selection, you click inside the already existing selection, but you have to do it you have to press Shift before you do this clicking. So I press Shift, you'll see I have a cursor with a positive sign next to it. I'm clicking inside the selected area, go click, come over here, come down, go like that, close off my selection like this, and now I have that line running right down the edge of the can. Okay, so I've just used multiple tools to make a selection. Okay, and I'm going to switch to another mode to deal with the edge of the can here. I'm going to go into what's called quick mask mode. Now, to be honest with you, I could probably go to my quick select tool. Let's try that even, and get Photoshop to deselect this top of the can. So I'm going to go press my Option key on a Mac. That makes my selection tool like a deselection tool, because I want to deselect the top of the can. And I'll say it again, it's because I'm going around this, about this, by selecting the background. So the background becomes a selection, right, not the can. Okay, it's all a little bit confusing right there. Okay, Photoshop's going to have a really hard time seeing this line down the top of the can here, so I'm going to do it with another method, and that's called quick mask mode. So the Q key on your keyboard is how you get into quick mask mode. I press Q, right? Oh, all of a sudden I get this pink thing, right? By default, that's pink. I can change the color if I want. It might even be helpful here, but wherever it's pink is the area that is not selected, right? And just remind you again, my background is selected, not the can. So that's why the can is pink. And the can is, if I leave it right now, that would be masked out. Ultimately, you want to mask out the background, but we're getting there. So when you get into quick mask mode, this is where you can use a paintbrush to paint in mask, paint out mask. And when I get out of quick mask mode, I'll have marching ants following the edge of wherever I've painted. So I can see right here that the pink is going beyond the edge of the can. I'm going to make it easier to see that by making the pink a little bit more translucent. I can do that in channels. I have quick mask mode in channels. If I double click on quick mask mode, I can say, hey, I want that opacity, I'm going to try 40%. Let's see how that goes. It's a little bit lighter. Now I can see the edge of the can here. And then I go to my paintbrush. Paintbrush is a third of the way down the toolbar. Right? You can press the B key to get there. So I'm pressing paintbrush icon, right? I want to make sure that the swatches at the bottom of the toolbar are white and black, not a color or two colors. Right? One sure way to do that is press the D key. Right? No, you don't have to press Command or Control, just D. And that gives you pure black and pure white in these two swatches. This is the foreground swatch and the background swatch. Okay. If I want to erase some of this pink, I want white in the foreground. So I just switch it with that double arrow right there. Right? Another way to switch these two is use your X key on the keyboard. Right? So I want white in the foreground, and white basically cleans out some of this red wherever I paint. Okay? I'm going to make my brush bigger, right bracket. I'm going to come in here and just go like so. Right? And I'll zoom in a little bit. It might get a little bit pixelated. You might be able to see that the pink doesn't quite go up to the edge of the can. So I'm going to press my X key. I get black in the foreground, and I can paint red out to the edge of the can like that. Right? I'll even come in here and touch this up a little bit. Right? And I notice also, just because I'm in this quick mask mode, I'm going to use it. And what I'm going to do is I need this pink to go over these parts of my WD-40 spray can here. So I'm just going to quickly cover that up. Okay. And I am doing this pretty fast and not entirely accurately because I just want to demonstrate this possibility for you. Okay. This quick mask mode is really helpful when you've got, I'd say more so irregular lines than like straight lines and things like that. Because with straight lines, you can use your polygonal lasso tool for selections and deselections. I have this pink in here, right, that is not the can. I want to get rid of it. I press my X key so that white's in the foreground, and now I come in and I erase that pink here, right, like so. Okay, make it smaller, like that. Come in there. I know that's a little bit of a problem right there. Okay, now really if I were working on this, you know, as a serious project, I would spend more time refining that selection, zooming in, looking all the way around the hand, all the way around the can to see if there's anything messed up, right? So I'm going to say that that's good. To get out of quick mask mode, I press the Q key once again. Okay, I see the marching ants. And it's important to notice that the marching ants go around the hand and the can, but they also go around the perimeter of the picture. That's because it's the outside that's selected, right? So I need to inverse that. Make the hand and the can selected and not the background, right? And you can do that with Command-Shift-I is the keystroke. And if you don't remember that, you can go up to Select in the top menu here, right? And that has to do with all things selections. I can go to Select and I can say, inverse that selection. You'll see the keystroke, Command-Shift-I. Once I invert the selection, there are no more marching ants out around the edge of the picture. They're only around the can and the hand. That's telling you the can and the hand are selected, not the background. Okay? Now I need to mask out the background. I'm not going to erase it. I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to mask it out. Okay? So I'm in my layer panel over here. I'll pull it out so you can see a little bit better. Here's my layer panel. right? Here's the original picture, right? I'm going to put a mask in this picture. The button at the bottom of the layer panel, the rectangle with the circle in the middle of it, is the button you click on to add a layer mask. Okay, and I go click, and it makes a mask, and voila, the background is gone. It's not erased. It's just not visible because it's been masked out. And you can see the layer mask right there, right? That the black area is masked out. The white area is what's being left visible in that picture. Okay, so all right, I happen to have this project pretty much finished, and I just put all the layers that I uh, added to this in this folder down here called completed image. So I'm going to turn this layer off, turn this folder on, and we see my completed image, right? So I've added a background. I'll open this up. I've added a background that has a gradient in it, right? It's at the very bottom. It says gradient fill 1, right? And it's that blue to white gradient. I'm not going to go over gradients here. Um, mess around with gradients. This is not a default gradient. I went in and I changed the colors. So I've got the blue on the left and the right, and I've got white in the middle, right? I did some other tricky things. Just above the gradient layer, I see exposure layer. You can see that there's a mask in there. You can see that that mask is very feathered, right? It's creating a vignette in the picture that's darkening the edges. It's not a ton, right? Just turned it on, turned it off, right? Darkening the edges so that the can in the middle of the picture stands up, stands out more visibly. Okay. I did some other things like this is not the standard WD-40 can. I put a little patch of color in there and changed out the typeface because the whole idea behind this particular project was to make WD-40 into something suave, like, and the idea is that it's something that I spray in my mouth. It's not a degreaser, you know. Okay, and then I put this little tagline up here: "The taste of a lifetime." Right, and that type has been arced, with the arc tool when you're in type and so on. Basically, this video is about selections and masking. So, right, I use masks, 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 masks. They're really great. You can go in and paint on a mask, right? Completely modify the mask. You can disable the mask, right? And I'll do that here just for the sake of it. Here's the photograph. You see where my cursor is circling, right? Photograph is there. Mask is to the right, right? They're linked together. So if I want to move that image around in my composition, I just select that layer, go to my move tool. I can move it around, right? Do all that kind of stuff. Command Z, because I don't really want, you can see my other layers. I didn't move those layers with the can. So that looks messed up, right? Kind of abstract, which could be fun, but I'm just not going to go there. So I go Command Z, it puts my can back in place. All right, but here is, if I right click on the layer mask, I can say, hey, layer mask, disable, and now I see the background that I just masked out, right? I can enable it again if I right click and say enable layer mask. I can delete the layer mask if I want to. I don't want to. I want to keep it. Okay. All right, so that is making a selection, making a mask, and all that good stuff. All right, take care.